So welcome to another KickBack football podcast. We're back again for the second week in a row. New series is called A Look Ahead. So what we're doing is taking a look at basically some of the teams that struggled for most of or for a large part of last season, or at least the teams who were in and around the relegation zone for a lot of the season. We did Aston Villa last week, of course, where we had Max Stokes from Villa on tour coming onto the show. This week, we're joined by Antony Martin and Henry Tomlinson, West Ham writers. So we're going to be talking about West Ham United. Obviously, wheeled away from the relegation spots, I would have said towards the latter end of the season, kind of became quite safe before the last couple of games. It's not quite as urgent as the Villa situation was. How is everyone today, though? Is everyone excited to be talking about West Ham?
Not really, no.
No?
Yeah,
I suppose.
It seems like it might be another season of struggle at the current progress of the transfer market.
Right. Okay. As I was saying to the guys just beforehand, how obviously with Villa, I feel like I know kind of loads and loads about Villa. So with West Ham, obviously you can do podcasts about teams you know less about than your own team. So I've had to kind of do a little bit of research, but it's going to be more of a balanced discussion. I think I'll let the two West Ham experts kind of speak a little bit more extensively on this one. We've got a few kind of areas to highlight. Before we do start, if you want to follow TOB, which is kind of, I want to say parent company, but it's not a company. It's my blog, and KickBack is now part of the blog. TOB_football is our Twitter handle if you want to follow that. And I'll leave the socials underneath as well. I'll ask the guys for their socials at the end, and we'll obviously put everything into the description. So hopefully we'll be on YouTube again, and also we'll be on all the podcast platforms. Lewis, how are you today as well?
It's just really done it for a month, and now it's kind of just carrying on with it. So it's kind of trying to escape that boredom.
Oh, definitely.
And try not to get too bored.
Yeah, I think we've all had that phase. Some people, especially everyone's situation seems to be totally different now. I think I'm the complete opposite now, where I've kind of got too much going on. I've been working like a lot more than usual. I seem to just be doing too much all the time, to the point where I kind of want to be bored again, I suppose. But everyone's in that sort of different stage of the process at the moment, aren't they? Right. So I think what we're going to start by doing is kind of look at West Ham's problem areas within the squad. So I've had a kind of a little look into it. Obviously, there's been certain areas. Left back is an area that seems to be kind of, you know, if you kind of try to look into West Ham's problem areas, or the areas where they're maybe slightly short on players, it tends to be left back that gets highlighted by most of fans, most of the writers, that kind of thing. I saw a 90 Min article which highlighted left back, centre back, and striker. I think we'll go to Henry first. Actually, would you say left back is a huge problem area for West Ham at the moment? And what do you think Moyes and what do you think the hierarchy can actually do to kind of solve that issue in the summer? And do you think it will happen?
Well, there's a lot there, but left back, it's been an issue for the last few years. Despite on paper, you'd probably say it looks quite secure to relatively seasoned, experienced professionals in the Premier League, like Crest. Got plenty of years experience. Mazaraku's got plenty of experience now since we moved to the London Stadium. But both have really suffered with like just being consistent. Mazaraku on his day can be great, but Aaron Cresswell, since he had a big injury just before we moved to the stadium, he hasn't returned this for the side, and it's probably one that's costing the club a relative amount in wages, but it's probably performing the worst. And there's a lot that can be done to fix it. There's plenty of options out there for what West Ham fans want to sort of see that fit the profile of player that everyone wants to see come in, and what David Moyes wants to bring in. He talks about this like Red Bull model of bringing in young players from like slightly lower leagues that are like British, and players that West Ham fans should sort of be used to coming in and sort of seeing like some sort of use, like what we're used to sort of having, rather than splashing out of money from players from other leagues. And there are players out there like Rico Henry from Brentford. He'd be a great purchase, especially as Brentford haven't come up. And he's been options out at the moment. We have that buy, and are probably going to be one of the lowest spenders this transfer window. We've brought in Thomas Souček and made his loan permanent, but other than that, it seems like it's going to be a very quiet window. But yeah, like left back is an issue that needs to be fixed so soon, because it's been an issue for the last 4 years, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking. It's interesting you say about Rico Henry from Brentford. He's a player that every summer he's linked with Villa as well. And if you look at West Ham's squad now, I'm pretty sure there are a decent number of players that came in from the Championship. Obviously, like Jared Bowen being kind of the big one, but obviously like Hugill as well. Ryan Fredericks a little bit further back. I think Hugill was further back as well. Well, who's that?
Mikel Antonio came from the Championship.
Yeah. Mikel Antonio. Oh, yeah, Cresswell, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like it has kind of been a thing at West Ham for a while. Yeah, obviously there are some players there who have come good. I've seen Mikel Antonio, especially in the latter half of the season, has been on fire, scored 4 goals, obviously, in that one game. Antony, how much would you say that is an issue left back? And do you think centre back is as equal an issue? Obviously, you've got guys in there like Ogbonna, Issa Diop. You've got Winston Reid, obviously out on loan as well. But there's a few other guys in there who have either been, I think they've had a few injury issues, haven't you? But also at the same time, there's kind of been that lack of consistency.
There you go.
All back.
Back on?
Yeah, looks like it. We're all good. And don't know what happened there. It was the internet. I think the internet's just extra bad today for some reason. But yeah, obviously, trying to talk about centre backs there. So yeah, there's guys like, obviously we're saying Issa Diop, Ogbonna as well. Obviously younger players as well, like Cardoso as well. But it seems kind of obvious to me that a centre back is needed. Do you think that a centre back is kind of an equal necessity to left back at the moment? And what kind of calibre of play we're looking for? Are we looking at younger players? Are we looking at trying to get somebody in for a little bit cheaper, or maybe kind of going for a bigger name? What would be your sort of preference as a centre back?
Firstly, I agree. We definitely don't need a new centre back, and also I agree with what Henry said. Left back is such a weakness for us. Barker is not. I just do not understand. He actually can be effective if you. On the left wing, constantly found out. And the problem we have when we play Felipe Anderson left wing, or Manuel out, that's why Moyes puts full nails out on the left. But that is definitely what Henry said, that we've got Ogbonna, who was immense last season, but he's 32 now, so you think he's probably got 2 years, maybe 3 at the top level. Issa Diop, I can't make my mind up on him whether he's a good player or not. He makes so many bad mistakes, lunges in when he shouldn't. But then other times I watch him and I think he's got so much potential. Winston Reid's probably going to go. Fabian Balbuena's going to go, most likely. I'd like a good, solid Premier League defender to come in. Someone like Shane Duffy, who we've been linked with a lot. I know he's not a great player by any means, but he's a good Premier League centre half, and that's what we need. Someone like that in the middle. another one I like is Robin Koch or Koch. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but he plays at Freiburg in Germany, and I've seen a lot of him. He's a really good centre half. I think he's about 23. But again, it's going to be money. Like he's going to cost around 20 million. Shane Duffy, I think, about 10 million. And we just haven't got any money. We still owe money on the Sebastian Haller deal, and I think Albion Ajeti's gone now. I think, or it's close to being done. And apparently, that money is just going to be paying off the Haller instalment that we owe. So it's just going to. We're in desperate need of selling some of our assets, like Felipe Anderson, Manuel Lanzini, someone like that who can actually maybe get us 15, 20 million, and then we can strengthen at the back. Really, even I was talking to someone the other day, even goalkeeper Fabianski, since he's returned from injury, has looked so unconvincing, and I'm not sure if we could sign, but he's 35 now as well, so I think we need to be looking at that position as well. Basically, our whole defence.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult situation. It looks like for me at the minute at the club, where you do have these players who have been performing really well. Obviously, Mikel Antonio has been performing very well. There's other players in bursts who have been performing very well as well. But it's that kind of thing especially with the centre backs. If you've been playing Ogbonna and Diop kind of quite regularly together, obviously one of them's towards the back end of his career, and one of them's at the very start of his career. Do you get in another young one to kind of, I don't know, lower that average age of the defence, or do you get in somebody older who can kind of replace Ogbonna? Lewis, this is a difficult question as well. What do you think has been the issue? Because obviously West Ham do have these very high quality players, people like Sebastian Haller, people like Felipe Anderson as well, Lanzini, Pablo Fornals. What do you think has been the problem in terms of them performing to the standards that they either have performed for before at West Ham or at their previous clubs? Obviously, Haller had an incredible transfer window when he was at had an incredible goal-scoring season, when he was at Eintracht Frankfurt. Anderson, obviously very good in bursts at West Ham, very good at Lazio as well, though. Lewis, what do you think the kind of issue has been overall?
I think looking at kind of like where they finished and everything, I think it's them conceding 62 goals last season, because like last season they could score. When you score 49 goals in 38 games, it's just over a goal a game. So they can score. And I think the fact that they conceded 62 and scored 49 shows that obviously they need to improve on a defensive side. But another problem I find is when I look at their squad, their youngest goalkeeper is 33. And obviously goalkeepers can go on for longer than outfield players. But I think they need to kind of get a younger goalkeeper in, maybe a younger goalkeeper in, or get a bit more of an established goalkeeper.
I think in terms of in that goalkeeper position, obviously Fabianski in general has been like a big success at West Ham, but he is 35. You don't know how long a keeper's going to go on for beyond that point. Some of them can start to tail off in their early 30s. Some of them can go on to they're about 40. You never really know. There are these younger keepers in the ranks, people like Nathan Trott, people like I think is it Joseph Enang as well. There's a few of these younger keepers who you don't know whether they will get a shot. They've been loaned out. I know Nathan Trott's been loaned out a few times to the lower leagues. Do you think we'll go to Henry? Do you think it's a case of bringing in a new keeper at the start of for the start of next season? Do you think it's maybe time to trust Fabianski for one more campaign, or should Moyes just bite the bullet? The club just bite the bullet and buy somebody in who's a little bit younger.
I think if we're working on such like a slim transfer budget, which we appear to be, I think everyone would rather see it spent on like a left back, right back, centre back, like those positions that desperately need it. Because I think Fabianski, although he's been poor towards the end of the season, there's still a very good goalkeeper there. And then Trott has had like a really good couple loan spells at Wimbledon. Like he's done really well. He's one of the best goalkeepers in, was it League One? I think they were in. And Joseph Anang, he's looking really promising. He's been in like the international youth setup. But I do think like it's either have a year left of Fabianski, because I don't think Roberto is going to be coming back anytime soon, or David Martin's going to be having an extended run. So maybe have them rotating with Fabianski for a year as in Nathan Trott. And then if you feel like Trott is ready to make that step up next season, you could look to bring him in to the like more first team for next season. But if not, that's when you go buy an established goalkeeper when you've hopefully fixed the defence. So you can have him like have a year playing the cup games and stuff like that instead of Fabianski behind a much better defence than what he'd be having to do now. So I think that's more the issue. I think Fabianski, he let in a couple sloppy goals, but generally was still relatively solid. I think, if anything, he was rushed back a bit and was still probably feeling a bit of pain when he did come back. But I don't think it's like a necessity to invest in at the moment with how poor the other positions are. Like that's why, because the other positions are much worse than the goalkeeper is. So that's sort of my answer for that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would have thought. That's what I would have thought as well. I think it's a common thing within football that I've heard a few times of, you know, rather than strength, you've basically got to strengthen the weakest areas first, and that's how you're going to get that balance in the team. And I think the defensive situation, excluding the goalkeeper situation, is the more urgent one. So I'd say if you fix the defence, obviously Fabianski would hopefully have a little bit less to do anyway, a little bit of pressure taken off him, and would hopefully perform better. And yeah, I just think it's definitely a more urgent situation. Ogbonna aging out slowly. Diop looks incredibly promising. Obviously, he was very promising when he came in, highly sought after young centre back. One of the most highly respected in Europe at that point, really, in terms of his age bracket. And there's still so much potential there. And he probably just needs somebody a little bit more established to kind of balance that out. Somebody like Shane Duffy, somebody like, I don't know, James Tarkowski, that kind of level. But obviously Burnley are very difficult to kind of prize players away from. We were talking about Ben Mee for Villa, potentially. That was highlighted last week. So that could be quite difficult. We'll go to Antony again. What do you think? This is quite a broad question. What are the main sort of three things, whether this is in terms of player recruitment or player sales or just anything around the club? What are the three main things that you want to see happen before the start of the new season at West Ham?
Yeah, that is a tough question. Firstly, I think we desperately need to get rid of players, because if we don't, we're not going to be signing anyone. So, as I said earlier, players like Anderson, Lanzini, I think there was ex-West Ham employees listed like 10 names, I think, that we're trying to actively sell this summer. And there's players that aren't giving anything. Balbuena, Jack Wilshere, I mean, he's earning £100,000 a week and he's played about 15 games, I think, for us. And we've got to get players like that off of our wage bill, because we're obviously for some reason, we seem to be the only club in the Premier League that have been this badly affected by COVID. I'm looking around, I'm seeing clubs like Southampton signing players. Like, why are we so badly affected? That's the first thing. So we need to get players like Roberto, just need to get them off the wage bill, move them on. And secondly, I want to see some young, hungry players brought in. My ideal target would be Eze from QPR. He's outstanding. I saw him a lot last year. I think he scored 14 goals and he racked up about 8 assists, I think, in about 45 games. And he looks really special. The problem, again, is that QPR wants 20 million, apparently, for him. So I can't see us paying that at the minute, unless we use Jordan Hugill in the deal. I'm not sure. But I'd also like to see a proper director of football. David Sullivan apparently conducts most of our transfer business, and it's quite embarrassing, really. I mean, there's so many clubs in world football that do not want to deal with us because of David Sullivan. And Eintracht Frankfurt will be the latest club in that long list now. And it's worrying really when you think he's in. I'm sure David Moyes says this is the player I want, but then when you think David Sullivan's negotiating for us, it's that's a real worry for me. So it'd be great if we could bring in a proper director of football. But again, I really don't see that happening because Sullivan likes to be involved in transfer deals, and I think that's held us back over the last few years, without a doubt. So they're the three main things, really.
Yeah, I think on that, what you're saying about giving young players a good opportunity. Obviously, we've seen Grady Diangana at West Brom, who have come up, and I think it looks like they want to sign him on a permanent. And there's also been rumours of Ngakia, I think, going to Watford, maybe.
He has,
has that happened?
He's already left West Ham. He didn't sign a new deal.
So
he's a free
right.
agent at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I've completely missed that.
Seems the most likely place for him to be going, I think.
Yeah. How important, obviously, that ship's already sailed with him, but players like Diangana, how important is it that these players, kind of form the future for West Ham rather than bringing in these players and splashing the cash on guys like Ale, guys like Anderson? How important is it, do you think, to rely a little bit more on these younger players, and how likely do you think that is actually going to happen? We can move to Henry on this one. Do you think that's likely? And if not, what do you think is likely in terms of their kind of transfer, kind of what type of ideas, and where do you think they're going to be shopping when the money is available?
Well, I think it's like a lot of West Ham fans, obviously, like we have like the Academy of Football because of Bobby Moore and Jeff Hurst and Martin Peters and all those people that we brought through so long ago. And then you obviously in the early 90s you had Ferdinand and Joe Cole and Lampard. So West Ham fans love it when we do have a young player come onto the pitch and excite people. Like you think of Freddie Steers scoring on his debut, Diangana exciting with like his skills and stuff like that. And we do have a few really good young promising players coming through like Diangana, Nathan Holland, Connor Coventry, players that could come in and do a job. And I think we will sort of rely on it a lot more going forward with this sort of shoestring transfer budget. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing in terms of the attack, because Nathan Holland's a very good attacker, Diangana is a very good attacker. And if Anderson, does stay at the club and he hits back to form, then you've saved £30 million on a winger. Like, we don't need to necessarily go and get Said Benrahma from Brentford, or maybe even Eze, if Anderson returns to his form, because there's clearly quality there. And the same with Haller. If you play a system that suits him, there's your 15-goal season striker. Like, he scored 7 goals in the league playing in a system that really didn't suit him, which is more than Vardy's first season in the Premier League. Like, there are players there going forward for the club. The main issue is, like, obviously, as we've said, like fixing the defence. So it would almost sort of be a shame, like, to see a player like Eze come in if that meant Diangana's time on the pitch would be affected, because I imagine it would, because all of a sudden if Anderson stays and you have Eze, Bowen, Antonio, Yarmolenko, Haller, it looks really congested, and you've got Fornals and Lanzini as well. Players will have to miss out of playing, and I'd rather see Diangana be given the chance than spend money I'd rather be seen spent in the defence than on Eze. I love Eze as well. I'd love him to join West Ham and it fit some way to work. But if you're going to sell Diangana for 20 million quid to West Brom to buy Eze for 20 million from QPR, and then you can't strengthen anywhere else, it seems a bit like odd. I wrote an article saying a positive look on West Ham's transfer window so far, and there are positives like Declan Rice is still a West Ham player. That's the biggest positive. We have signed Souček on a permanent deal. Like, I think a lot of people saying, well, how come this team is signing this player and that player? It's like, well, like I say, like Antony, like Southampton sold Højbjerg. That's how they afforded Salisu. Like, we haven't actually sold anyone yet, but we've spent £14 million completing the Souček deal. So we are probably so far we have expenditure rather than making any money yet. So I'd rather see like the investment go into the defence to fix the side and rely on young players that we have that are promising attackers coming through. Like Nathan Holland, I think, was like tricked out of the Premier League 2 Player of the Year by Curtis Curtis Jones from Liverpool, because he scored more goals in games and had assists as well compared to the Liverpool player. So he's clearly got a lot of talent. So if they can transfer, we don't need to invest in attackers. It just shows if they're trying to do that, it's Sullivan going, well, I'll buy the player that's going to get people say excited, and that will sell transfer tickets, because a left back doesn't sell season tickets. Young British attacking midfielder with all this talent in the world does. So
yeah,
I'd rather see him spend £20 million on a left and right back than Eze. I'm sure Eze would be a brilliant player, and it would be a shame to miss out on him. But if we're that cash strapped, use the money more wisely.
Yeah, I think Eze definitely looks like a brilliant player who I think probably is going to make a step up to a Premier League side. It's been linked with a few. It's a strange one, I think, in terms of the Sebastian Haller situation. Obviously, he scored a lot of goals at Frankfurt, scored a lot of goals at Utrecht before that in the Netherlands, and back in France as well. He had a decent goal-scoring record. But it'll be interesting to see whether Moyes plays more to Haller's advantage next season, switches the tactics up a bit to try and get him a few more goals and kind of use him, or whether he is going to be moved on, because Sebastian Haller, to me, is a player who is still going to attract attention. He's not particularly old. That goal scoring record is there, it's plain to see. I feel like guys like him are still going to be highly sought after, but it's things with Felipe Anderson. I believe Felipe Anderson's 27, so he's at that age now where he should really be at his peak, or approaching his peak. But it seems like his peak's already been at the moment. Whether he can revive that, who knows? But do West Ham see this as the last possible opportunity to get a decent fee for him and sell him on, and then risk, losing a quality player, or do they keep on trying with it? It's a difficult situation. I think we can go to Lewis again now. Obviously, we've seen the three promoted teams, Leeds United, West Brom and Fulham, coming up. How much of a threat do you think these three clubs pose to the likes of West Ham next season? Do you think, obviously, Leeds are kind of the Wolves of this season in terms of they're the team out of the three that you kind of would be least surprised to see climb up the table and maybe finish in a mid-table kind of position. But teams like Fulham and West Brom as well. Lewis, do you think that West Ham are in even more trouble now that there's such quality coming into the league?
I think the problem is with that question is it really depends on what West Ham do. If they don't really do much to address their issues, then I think yes, because touching on what I said earlier, I think last season showed that even if you can score goals, it doesn't really matter unless you can kind of stop goals being scored against you. So I think with more talent coming up from the Championship, that could pose a threat, because they need to basically stop the goals being conceded. And obviously with you said with Fabianski's injury and the fact he might have been rushed back, then that could mean that they can obviously hold off on their goalkeeper situation for maybe a season. But they really do need to sort that defence out. I don't think they can afford to concede the amount of goals they did last season.
No. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I think Fulham's defence looks quite weak still, as it was in the Premier League last time. Whether they will strengthen it a little bit better this season, I'm not entirely sure. Villa have been very shaky at times defensively. As we were saying last week, hopefully we can kind of get somebody to sit alongside Mings and kind of balance that defence out a little bit, more of a traditional centre-back. And then you've got teams like West Brom and Leeds as well, where you're kind of not entirely sure what they're going to be doing in the transfer window. Leeds have been linked with all manner of different players. Obviously, there's the whole Ben White situation, which is kind of got a bit out of control at the moment. But I think it's going to be an interesting season for West Ham for sure. It will be certainly interesting to see, because they strike me as a team who, a few transfers, maybe they could see themselves moving up towards mid-table, with maybe just like 2 or 3 key areas solved. If they bring in a new fullback, they bring in a centre-back, and, you know, they strengthen another area, then maybe they do have that power to push up a little bit. There's people who are still on the fence about David Moyes as well. So he's kind of proven that he deserved the job back. He's kept them in the Premier League. He's managed to get the best out of guys like Antonio. Souček, I think, is a superb deal. He's been really good recently, and to get a guy like him in, who wasn't really on the radar of any other clubs as far as I can see, I think that's a really good move. I'll ask Antony for like kind of like the final question. Where do you predict West Ham are going to finish next season? If you take everything into account in terms of what you would expect from the transfer window and what you'd expect of the current squad as well, where do you see the Hammers finishing?
Yeah, it's obviously hard to predict, but what I'll lead on from what you said about David Moyes. With Moyes in charge, I think anywhere from 15th to 12th, if we're lucky. And at the moment, considering we haven't got any money, I'll be quite happy with that at the minute. But I wish we had more ambition and would have gone for someone like, even when we appointed Pellegrini, someone like Nagelsmann or Niko Kovac, someone like that. I wasn't keen on Pellegrini when he came in. And then when Pellegrini left and got replaced by Moyes, a lot of people say he's done a good job. I think it's more of a case of there was 3 terrible teams that sort of let us off the hook, really. Same as when he was first time in charge. Said we let in 62 goals. I think 30 of them was after Moyes took over. So they both had 19 games. So it was a toss-up, really, between the two. And I don't think he's a manager that's going to take us forward. He'll probably keep up. I'm sure he will next season. But yeah, I'll say anywhere from 15th to 12th, unless we do, as I said earlier, sell some big name players and make some good signings. And the key will be getting the best out of Haller. Aside from strengthening the defence, everyone knows we've got to do that. If we can get the best out of Haller, get someone up alongside him, right behind him, there's no reason why he can't score 15 goals next season in the league. He should be able to. He scored, I think, 20 for Frankfurt the season before, playing next to Luka Jovic. And I think if we can sort our defence out and get the best out of him and keep Declan Rice, which I'm not very confident on, but if we can, then I think maybe we could push towards the top half finish, but not confident.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I expected you to say, I suppose, in many ways, in terms of it looks like in the short term, 12th, that kind of area is sort of a positive place for West Ham to be, I think, in terms of, I don't think it's a one transfer window or a one season solution. I think it's going to take a couple of seasons. But West Ham, I think they've got the resources are there to build a really, really strong team. Obviously, the money situation at the minute is a very difficult one. But you've got the young players coming through. You've got the quality in guys like Sebastian Haller, Declan Rice, if you can keep hold of him. And I think all of the kind of core elements are in place or kind of on the way to be in place. So there's a lot of them at least. And I think West Ham fans should probably be quite positive going into the next 5 years or so. But it's just about whether they trust guys like David Sullivan, people like Moyes as well, whether he's somebody who is going to stay in the long term or not. Henry, have you got any kind of final words to add to what Antony said? Do you kind of agree with that sentiment, or do you have any opposing views?
I agree. Like, we need to sort of like help out and sort of fix the defence, and then you would sort of maybe have a bit more of an optimistic prediction for next season. But I know you're just saying like we should be optimistic for the next 5 years, but I think we've been told that for the last 10 years since they've been.
Yeah, that is true. I maybe shouldn't have said that.
And in that time, we've been relegated and left our spiritual home for a place that not everyone's entirely happy with, because the amount of work that needs to happen to the stadium in order to make it a football stadium is atrocious because they're squaring off like the lower tiers, but the main issue is the gap between the first tier and the second tier, which is like this, and then that's just a gap that needs to be brought in. But
yeah,
I'm not an architecture, and I don't know how much that's going to cost to do that, but I imagine it's going to be quite a lot. So, I know transfer window, so I think a lot of fans are maybe hoping that it's something to do with the club being sold on, because one of the owners, Tripp, has sort of been moving to sort of trying to be funded like a consortium to take a bit more power of the club, which, and at this point, like the grass might not always be greener, but at this point, I think most West Ham fans will do anything to get out of the Gold, Sullivan and Brady era, even if it's to like an unknown quantity like Tripp. Because I think he made his money in like taking over businesses and like almost scrapping them for parts. So as worrying as that sounds, a lot of West Ham fans will like just take that because they don't want to be underneath the three anymore. So I always try to be optimistic every season. I'm like, oh, you look at the team and you got Fabianski in goal, you got Declan Rice, you got Haller. Surely we're coming top 8. Since the last season at the Bowling Ground, every year, like in my head, I'm like, we're coming 9th or higher. And every year, it's just been the complete opposite. Like my friend who I talk about this with the pub before every season signed really well. You signed Zaza. Oh, he was brilliant. and then it all comes crashing down. So I think I agree with Antony. If someone offered me 12th to 15th, I'd snatch it at the moment. Unless we made some good signings.
Yeah, I think I worded it completely wrong when I said that West Ham fans should be optimistic ahead of the next 5 years. I think from the outside,
I think you're right. We should be.
Yeah,
but
know whether you can be. Yeah, it's a difficult situation because I think you do have you've got resources in place. It looks from the outside like a club that is kind of destined for success. But when you actually read more, obviously, into the ownership, the recruitment over the last couple of years, well, I say last couple of years, even the whole situation of bringing in 1 million strikers over the last sort of decade or so and very few working out, these kind of issues that have happened, it must be very difficult to be optimistic. I do apologise as well for the poor connection that we've had throughout this. I'm debating whether to put this out as an audio or just on YouTube because I think a combination of the audio and the footage might be a little bit better than just the audio by itself. So we'll see. But as I said, at @TOB_football, that's our Twitter handle. Henry, where can the fans find you?
So people can find me on Twitter, Henry T Sport. Write a lot of West Ham based articles, do a couple sort of local news stories around Brighton as well, focusing on sport. But yeah, Twitter's best. I think it can be on Facebook at Henry Tomlinson Journalism or something, but the Twitter's the main one. And
Antony, what about you?
On Twitter at Antony M Martin 84, or I'll write for hammers.news, so you can find me there if you want to read my stuff.
There we go. So I think we've had quite a successful little podcast there. As I said, audio and the connection obviously not ideal. I'll try and sort that out in coming weeks. My internet is getting replaced in coming weeks, so hopefully we'll be a little bit better. But yeah, we're going to aim to do this every week or so, just to try and highlight a team and kind of get a few experts, I guess, from that team on board. So do stay tuned on our YouTube, obviously under the TOB Football YouTube account. The links will go out all over the social media every single time we upload. So thank you for watching. Thanks to the guys for joining. Thanks to Lewis as well for coming back on board. And we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for having us, George.
Thank you, George.
No worries. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.